Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's WFB Live. I am Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. And for today's session, we have two experts from Bona. We have Zach Clavin and John Mace, and they are going to talk to us about Bona's new waterborne Chroma product for adding color to wood floors. Before I turn it over to Zach and John, two quick things. They're going to talk to us about Chroma and they're going to show us a few videos. There will be time for Q&A after each video. So if you have questions as you're watching, you can put those into the questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel. And then tomorrow you will be getting an email with a link to this entire presentation. So if you want to refer back to it, send it to coworkers, send it to colleagues, you will have that tomorrow. So with that, I will turn it over to Zach and John.
All right, thank you, Kim, and thanks for everyone who's tuning in today for this, or maybe tuning in later today when work's over. My name is Zach Clavin. I am a strategic product manager for the professional products here at Bona. This is my 20th year at Bona, and I will say that a waterborne coloration type product has been in discussion for the full 20 years I've been at Bona, and actually in development probably for the last 8 or 9 years from the early iterations of this. So a lot of work has gone into this, and something Bona is very excited to finally have to offer really a full waterborne system to offer your customers. And so we'll do a quick overview after John's introduction here and get started.
I'm John Mace. I've been in the wood floor business for 32 years, ex-contractor and WFA inspector. I've been with Bona for about 7.5 years. And for that entire time, I've been working on Chroma. So day one there with my counterparts here in Denver and the team in Monroe R&D. We have slowly but surely built this product from scratch to be a very user-friendly and easy, smart product.
So quickly, we'll go through the agenda of how this is going to flow. I'll go through a quick overview of Chroma, what it is, some of the features and benefits, and then we will jump into some videos. The first one being just the application process. And as Kim mentioned, we will have questions, time for questions after each video. Second video will kind of be a post-application of Chroma. And then third one, talking about the look, because it does differ, some things to notice different than oil-modified products and how it looks on the floor prior to coating with your finishing system. And then lastly, we will have 2 videos just on repair. Some small overall repairs are about the same as they would be on oil stain, but there are some little tricks that make some of these a little bit easier that we'll go through. And again, questions after each one. And then we'll wrap it up. So first with Chroma waterborne wood floor coloration. So this is a 2-component product that actually uses a what we call the coloration additive as the part B with this. And the reason for that is it's a pretty important role because it locks in the color. So for a long time, we had a product that was super easy to use, but when you went to coat over it with waterborne products, you would remove color. And so we found that adding, and this is really a lot of work John did, adding this coloration additive to it locked in the color. And we're all familiar with mixing. It's a very simple 5% or 20-to-1 ratio, and gives you a long pot life of at least 24 hours. It doesn't harden or anything like that. So it is a 2-component for a reason. But part of that coloration additive, it got us to a point where we felt we had an easy to use product that we could put out in the market, because one, we know if the product isn't easy to use, then the contractor isn't going to have success on a job and get paid. So we needed that first, and we believe, and we've been through every application we could think of out there over the last 7 or 8 years. And honestly, starting with just a standard buff on, buff off method like we do with oil, but there was reasons that didn't work out. And part of the reason we wanted to call it a coloration system is to kind of stay away from the stain name, just to separate it out and differentiate it from an application standpoint. The process uses skills everybody already has. They're very simple, but they're just a little different or a little different order than you're used to with oil modified. Low VOC, so at 250 grams per liter, this is compliant across the US and Canada. So I know a lot of markets every year starting to have stricter regulations on whether you can sell oil modified products that are in a gallon. So a lot of people are in quart exempt areas, so no quart batching or anything. We got a gallon of this will work everywhere you guys reside. And then no water popping. Because Chroma is a waterborne product, the water popping is actually in the bottle. It's sort of a 2-in-1 with this. So, you know, because water popping has become a standard pretty much with any oil modified stain job, which, you know, is fine. It gives the floor a nice uniform look. It gives you a little darker color, but it's also an extra step. And, you know, you have to let it dry, then you have a very sensitive floor that can easily get damaged, makes repairs a little more difficult, and it extends the dry time of oil modified stains out quite a bit. So no need for that with this. And because it's a waterborne product, it has very fast and consistent dry times. We all know that waterborne products in general, they don't give us problems when it comes to long dry times. You don't put a 2-hour dry time product on the floor and it takes 24 hours for it to dry. That's oil products. So water has always had a very consistent dry time, and now Chroma offers that, and that is 2 to 3 hours with all the colors. So no matter how dark it is or light it is, it's going to be that consistent 2 to 3 hour dry time, giving you more confidence to coat over that same day it's applied, if that works out. Non-yellowing formula, always good, especially currently because trends are on the lighter side, and you know the whites and grays maybe fading out a little bit, but still the floors are very natural looking to where you don't want any yellowing coming through and upsetting your customer in 6 to 12 months. So Chroma will not do that. All the colors will stay the same as they're applied. Initially, although your wood may oxidize and stuff, giving you some yellowing, but the product itself will not. Bleed back, common issue with oil modified from just slow drying conditions, where that oil starts wicking back up the surface, and you know a lot of times you can catch it while it's still wet and wipe it up, or you may have to come in after it's dried and do a little more aggressive repairs, scraping or sanding those off. And then water cleanup. It's much easier. It doesn't require any additional solvents or other products to clean your tools. And all the tools with Chroma, at least the roller and the cutting pad, those tools that you'll use, you can clean out very easily and reuse those for other jobs down the road. So a little more sustainable of an option. And then low to no odor. If I had my way, I would have said there's no odor to this, because at least for my sniffer, it's very hard to pick up. I would say that it has quite a bit less smell than even a waterborne finish, even our traffic range. So almost no odor, which is great for selling to your customers. You know, one less day with strong solvent smells in the air, but also good for the contractor. I mean, one, just working with products that have these kind of strong odors and fumes, but also, and I always tell the story of when we were testing this product with one of our contractors out in the field, one of the biggest things to him was that he could go home every night to his family and kids and play with them and not feel like he's contaminating the air and hurting them. So a much cleaner, safer, healthier approach to coloring a floor with Bona Chroma. And then GreenGuard Gold certified. So GreenGuard Gold is about 100 times more stringent than just standard GreenGuard. And with the introduction of Chroma, we now have a full system of GreenGuard Gold products, which include the Chroma waterborne coloration, Bona Clear Seal, our Bona Traffic HD family of products, including the recently launched Bona Traffic Go, all Green Guard Gold. So if that's something your customer is really concerned with, then we have that as a full system. And then one of the biggest things, non-flammable. This is a real risk in our industry, and it's almost become accepted because there hasn't really been a good alternative to be able to color a floor outside of oil modified products. But most contractors have probably had some sort of scare, if not an actual fire, whether it's, hopefully not in a house, but truck or dumpster. And it's a risk too, as we, change, we get new employees coming on who may not have the experience and the knowledge of these products and the damage they could do. So we're really excited to have this product that's safe and will not give you any risk of fires or anything. From a product assortment, so we have 9 colors that range from whites, grays, light browns, dark brown. We kind of have a brown red called spilt wine, down to your darker Americano, which is like an ebony. So we wanted to introduce each color so that it kind of covers the range of tones that are used in our industry. But we also have a 10th product, which is just clear. So this is chroma with no pigment, and it's really used to make blends or to dilute down the color, because with chroma or waterborne stains in general, you can't go darker by water popping. You start dark and you can only lighten it up. So that's where that clear is used for blending and diluting colors down. And in addition to that, before we launched this, we put a lot of work to having resources and things to really help the contractor and make the launch successful by doing some of the legwork beforehand. And so we created this list of stain matches from both the Dry Fast lineup and our competitors, some popular colors in both water popped and non-water popped, just to give you a starting point and take some of that work out of getting some custom colors for your customers. So with that, we are going to start with our first video on the application of chroma. And again, we'll have some question time afterwards. See you soon.
Hey everyone, if you're wondering how to apply the new Bona Chroma waterborne wood floor coloration system, you came to the right spot. So let's take a quick look at the process and techniques you might use to successfully apply this incredible new product. Of course, if you need more details and explanation, make sure to check out our full-length version of the Bona Chroma application video. To apply chroma, begin by cutting in your starting section, being sure to feather out all cut-in strokes with the grain. Next, saturate your roller and apply chroma to the section field, re-rolling the cut-in areas as well to ensure even coverage throughout. Your application rate should resemble a light coat of paint with the grain barely visible. Feather out all roller end strokes, especially at the ends of each section, to avoid hard lines and lap marks in the field. Finish your rolling process with cross grain strokes to ensure an even application throughout the grain pattern. Next, buff the section with a 1-inch white pad on a 175 RPM buffer, slowly creating a wet swirl pattern to distribute the coloration evenly. Then rebuff at a faster speed until the color is even and the wet swirls have disappeared. Remove and blend in any remaining coloration next to the walls or other detail areas by hand. Typically on the starting section, and any time we expose a fresh side of the white pad, we will skip the removal of excess chroma on the section and move directly to buffing with the white pad. This allows us to get some workable product loaded into the white pad and avoids pulling too much coloration out of the new pad section. On the next section, repeat the cutting in process if needed, feathering out all cut-in strokes and scrubbing any overlap areas with the cut-in pad to dissolve hard lines. Repeat the rolling and saturation of the field, re-rolling the cut-in and lapped areas, scrubbing sideways with the roller as needed to dissolve hard lines. Add more coloration as you go to ensure appropriate coverage, and finish out by rolling the section cross-grain. Next, to make final blending and removal easier, use a terry cloth towel under your Bona mop to remove approximately 30 to 70% of the excess coloration in the section, utilizing a sideways motion with the mop to keep it from grabbing and flipping, and feathering at the ends to create narrow feather lines. Now, buff the section with the 1-inch white pad, focusing first on blending any overlap areas. Slowly create a wet swirl pattern to evenly distribute the remaining chroma throughout the section. Then, rebuff at a faster speed until the color is even and the wet swirls have disappeared. Remove and blend in any remaining coloration next to the walls or other detail areas by hand. You can continue to work the floor section by section. On subsequent runs, make sure you overlap prior runs as well as previous section ends. Scrub lap marks where needed. Roll out and feather the field to saturate with coloration, ending cross grain. Partially remove excess material from each section with a Bona mop and terry cloth towel before buffing out any remaining chroma with a white pad and buffer. Focus first on buffing lapped areas until even. Then continue distributing the color on the first buffing pass, achieving wet swirls. Then faster on subsequent passes to remove any remaining wet swirls. Remove and blend in any remaining coloration next to the walls or other detail areas by hand. When possible, work sections wall to wall to avoid the possibility of lap marks in the middle of the floor. Work a narrower segment down the floor by first cutting in and feathering the starting end wall, then rolling out the field. Again, re-rolling over your cut-in area, overlapping any previous runs, and ending cross-grain with the roller. As you continue to roll out the section, one person may want to start removing and feathering out the excess near the starting wall. And as you roll out the last part of the field, cut in, feather, and re-roll the opposite end wall when it's reached. Working as a team, one person can continue to remove the excess down the wall-to-wall section, while the other starts the buffing in and off process with the white pad. The buffing technique is identical to when working sections, working any overlap areas first, then buffing the main field to spread the color and create your wet swirl pattern. Then slower to do a final blend until the wet swirls disappear. Finally, hand blend and remove any excess product near the walls, in overlap areas, and in detail areas where the buffer can't reach. Repeat on the next wall-to-wall section. So there you have it, a quick look at how you can successfully apply the new Bona Chroma waterborne wood floor coloration system by working in sections or by working wall-to-wall. On a lot of jobs, you're going to find that using both techniques is the best way to go. But either way, Bona Chroma is a game changer. So get some chroma for your next job and change your game.
Okay, guys, we do have a couple questions that came in. One of them is, if I don't have the roller, what should I use to apply the chroma?
Pretty much any good quality, non-shedding 3/8 nap microfiber roller will suffice. In a pinch, even a low-end big box store will work, but you're going to get better delivery of product to the floor if you use something in the 3/8 microfiber non-shedding type of product.
Okay. The next question, can I just buff the chroma on and off like I would with a regular stain?
Yeah, no, I would not recommend that. And typically what happens is it can get a little inconsistent, where you may have a very heavy saturation when you first start, and then a little bit less as you go. And that's why we use the roller, because we kind of call it, around the shop, we call it kind of a flood application, just because it denotes the idea of being pretty liberal with your application, so that you get full saturation of the wood fibers for at least a minute or two while you go and get your terry towels and take off some of that excess. So buffing on just puts on too thin after a minute or so. It goes on real nice in the beginning, but then it starts to thin out as you move on.
Okay, that makes sense. Those are the questions we have for now.
Okay. Should we roll on to the next video?
Not in the traditional sense, where you walk in that next morning after you've put a solvent-based stain on, and you see along some of your board seams and maybe even some of your heavy grain that stain has come back out, and now you've got a half day or a full day of repairs to go back and fix those before you can go ahead and put your sealer and finishing system on. The only thing we've found where you may get some color coming back is if you have significant vertical board movement, and you've put maybe too much color on there and you do have some pooling down on the tongue, you may get a little bit of the coloration creeping back onto the surface. This can typically be easily and gently removed with just a damp rag and very light fingertip pressure. Make sure you don't use too much, because you may actually pull too much color off of that. So again, does it bleed back? You may have some instances where it comes back just a little bit. I wouldn't call it your typical bleed back, but it can also be a lot easier to remedy and fix than your typical solvent-based bleed back issues. So typically it's easy to clean up simply with a damp terry cloth rag, even after the chroma has dried. So maybe it's 2 hours later, you're ready to put down sealer, you come back and find some misses on your baseboards, or the next day, or even as you're going along doing your application, if you get some on there, you can wipe it off with a dry rag. If that doesn't work, try a damp rag. Be careful with getting that damp rag down into the product on the floor, because it may sweep some of that away as well. Now, when trying to clean off some Bona Chroma off of some low sheen paints that may be on trim work, that may actually require some multi-purpose cleaner to adequately remove the chroma from that surface. Also, a couple drops of Dawn dishwashing liquid into some water and then slightly dampen the rag with that can work very, very well. But we always go back to our commandment of keep it clean, right? Whether you're applying this product or something else, we're not trying to get it on the trim and baseboard. We know it's probably going to happen no matter how good we're trying to be, but just know that Bona Chroma can easily be cleaned off of most of those sealed surfaces with a dry rag, with a damp rag, or maybe with the help of a little extra cleaner. Again, the great part here is they're not combustible, not flammable. So you could go ahead and rinse them out with water, reuse them if you wanted to for those same colors down the road, or immediately just throw your soaked rags and white pads in the garbage. They're not going to start on fire ever, so you have no worries about that. Not combustible, not flammable. Rinse, reuse, or give them a toss. So the good news here is no extra prep work is required. Unlike some other solvent-based stains, if they've been sitting, more than 48 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours, you're probably going to have to do some extra prep work, even if it's just hitting them with a conditioning pad. With Bona Chroma, nothing else to do. Just ensure that no other surface contamination has gotten on the floor since you applied it. Maybe dry tack it to remove any extra, dust, debris that's fallen on it since you applied. Then go ahead and apply your normal sealer and finishing system, and you're good to go. Yes, you can do a second coat of Bona Chroma, but the additional depth of color, it's only going to be very slight at best. So it may be better to put a coat of amber seal on it, or maybe add just a touch of the chroma coloration to your next coat of sealer to get that additional depth that you want, and avoid going through the whole chroma process again, only to find out that it only added a little bit to what you wanted. Yes, you could try that to reduce blotchiness, and if you try to take that step, the only thing we'd recommend is cut your original chroma color 50% with chroma clear, just to minimize any additional depth of color you might add to the floor, especially if that is not what you're wanting to do. You're only trying to reduce blotchiness. But also go back and take a look at the look video, and know, especially if this is just your first time applying chroma, that the look you get before you apply the sealer, it's definitely different and might be a little bit alarming. Typically when you add that coat of sealer on there, it evens everything out 90–95%. So your worry right now about blotchiness and trying to add a second coat may be not necessary at all. This is one of the magic things about it, is after that buffing in phase with the white pad, it can be walked on immediately. So this may be super helpful if you're doing a tight area, like doing a half and half hallway, or trying to squeeze into a pantry or behind a kitchen island. Once it's buffed off, it should be dry enough to walk on. Now, best practice is still going to be to use booties or maybe terry cloth rags under your feet as you slide across it. But if you're doing it right and you're getting all that excess off and truly buffing it out, it's dry enough to walk on, which can be a huge advantage on any of your jobs to help you be a little more nimble and work around things instead of worrying about if you're getting stain on the bottom of your shoes and then tracking that onto the rest of your floor.
Guys, we had another application question come in. Can I use a carpet pad, excuse me, can I use a carpet pad instead of the white pad on the buffer?
No, I wouldn't recommend it, and basically just for the simple reason of there's so many brands of carpet out there, and you may have been pulling something from a previous job. It could have all kinds of debris in it. It may have stain resistant characteristics on it, so it may not absorb and work the excess product in the same way a white pad does consistently from job to job to job. So we do recommend sticking with the white pad so that you have consistent results over time.
Sounds good. I think we're ready for the next video then.
Hey, now that you've got your Bona Chroma coloration system applied, let's just talk about the look. Because if you've been in this industry a while and you've always put down oil, solvent-based stain sealers, this is really going to have a different look for you. And let's just explain why, and it may make you a little hesitant or question your application techniques, but once you get through this and learn to trust yourself, trust your techniques, everything's going to work out fine. Again, because this is not a stain sealer, it's just a stain, there is no film build to this product. So as you look back across the floor, you may see shadows of each of your runs, you may see slight transition lines on each of your segments, And that's mainly caused not by the coloration in your floor, but because of the buffer work on the floor. Because you may have buffed with a little different pressure here and there, it's going to create either something shinier, leave something duller, and that's mainly what you see as you're looking across. So what you want to do to help alleviate your concerns, walk your floor, look at those areas that you're concerned about over the top from different angles, because that is going to show you then that it's just light refracting at different ways, mainly because of how the buffer was run across the floor. You'll also be able to get on top of stuff and see, oh, okay, I do have a little bit of a transition line there or a little bit of a lat mark. Then we can go to the troubleshooting series and look at how to take care of those. But just a little bit of caution. I know it's going to happen because it happened to me when I first used it after being here for 30 years, right? Wow, this looks so different. Is that okay? And once you put your sealer on, you'll get what we call micro dissolving. And it's going to take that product and blend everything a little bit better together. Plus, that's also going to put your consistent film on the floor and your consistent light angles, and that's when everything will come together, blend together, and look a whole lot better. So whenever you get done with your application and you're practiced on this product, you're confident in this product, you're looking back across it, trust your inspection, trust your technique on the floor, trust your feathering, your removal, your buffing. Understand what you're seeing from a light refraction point of view and what you might have caused with the buffer in different places. And over time, again, you'll learn to trust yourself, the product, your techniques, and have a lot of success using the Bona Chroma coloration system.
Okay, guys, something else that came in is the question, since this is waterborne and you're basically water popping the floor, do you end up having a lot of grain raise? And if so, what do you do about it?
That's a good question. And the answer is no, you don't get really any grain raise at all. And the key to that is back to the white pad, because that white pad is basically a polishing pad. Any grain raise that does occur when you first apply the product is knocked down and smoothed out significantly after you get done removing all the excess, to the point where the floor will almost look like it has a coat of finish on it. You can see a reflective surface. It's pretty unique. It feels super smooth. And what I like best is that my first coat of sealer, my sealer coat looks fantastic. It looks awesome. Doesn't have a bunch of hair in it. And I was always a buff my sealer kind of guy. I like my finished surfaces to get smooth early on. So I don't have to do that anymore. I don't worry about if I getting smooth, it's already smooth.
Awesome. Okay. This question came in and I think it was answered earlier, but this person maybe, just joined us recently, asking again about bleed back. Do you want to just reiterate the bleed back?
Sure. No, it's a good question. It's actually one of the greatest features about the product. You don't get any bleed back in the traditional sense, and by that I mean product getting trapped between boards and then being sealed in by the partially drying resin of an oil modified product, which then, because there's still solvent in there trying to get out, it creates these bubbles like a little poly bead, we call them, on the surface. It's all sticky and smears stain everywhere. You don't get that because the water is the solvent in this, and water can go through any surface except aluminum foil, basically. So you don't get any poly beads, you don't get any bleed back because of that, because water can make its way through. One thing that I think that Todd mentions in the video is if you have some boards with some up and down movement, and you have product between those boards, which inevitably you will, say it's an older floor, when you're walking on the floor and you get the compression of the boards, you can get a little bit of product that wick back up on the surface, but you can just turn around and wipe it right off. In fact, you can generally wipe it right off the next day as well without any problems.
Excellent. And then this is another question I think that was addressed, but if you want to reiterate this one too, how soon can I walk on the floor after applying it? You can walk on it right away, you said, right?
Yeah, you can walk on it right away, which is one of the coolest things that we started to realize about this product. no footprints on it, no pick up a stain. You can step on the floor and then off onto basically a carpeted surface, and you're not going to transfer. We do recommend you might want to wear some booties, depending on the color you're using, just as best practice. But traditionally, yeah, you can just get right on top of it, which is a pretty cool feature because I've shown guys like this is how you now back out of your house. You don't have to like do a section down at the end of the hallway, get it all cleaned up and then walk backwards and do another section, walk backwards, or have somebody standing in the wet product down there making a mess. I mean, you can do that and turn around and put your buffer right on top of it, and then your helper is putting it on in front of you and you're just buffing your way right out the front door. It's super simple and smooth.
Nice. Okay, then I think we're caught up with questions.
Next video.
Okay, so sometimes we might have a heavy mark in the floor. We made these with our roller when we were cross-rolling our section and didn't get those out with the buffer. So whenever we have a mark in the floor, we want to be the least aggressive that we can in our methods until we get it removed or camouflaged. And always remember with a repair, I don't need to get this board perfect. I just need to get it camouflaged enough where it looks natural. Because it might be that I've just got a big light spot here too, and this whole board is supposed to be this color. But if I can just reduce these lines and blend these up with here, reduce this dark mark through here, through this piece of grain, it might look completely normal for half this board to be a little lighter, half to be a little darker. So we're gonna start first with the dry rag. And I also see that I've got a few just heavy swirls from our application. So this has been since yesterday, but I can take my dry rag and take those wet swirls out just by rubbing them a little bit. So if you've got just some swirls or something that you missed, whether with a dry rag, so you can see a little color came off, dry rag or a damp rag, we can take those swirls out. But since this has been yesterday, and it's also a lot easier to do if this was fresh. So if we just got done doing chroma in the house, we came back, we were walking everything, we noticed something like this, it would be a lot easier to move color with my dry rag or my damp rag when it was fresh. So I can try a little bit with this, and you want to use fingertip pressure, and I really want to try to just stay over where it's heavy, you know, so that I'm blending that up. And I'm taking a little bit off, but I'm gonna have to work pretty hard at this to erase those marks. Maybe this one, since this is only one piece of grain, I can erase this one a little easier and blend that out. That seems to be working pretty well. And then you can always use a damp rag to wipe it over the top to kind of judge how well did I move that color or camouflage that mark so that when I do put my sealer finish over the top, what is actually going to show through. But this one is being a little more stubborn and it's a little more pronounced going across all three of those grain lines. So now I might take just my damp rag and it'll help remove more color. The tough part here is just staying on the heavy mark, because if I'm putting pressure on it and I get over into the light area as well, it's going to take that color off there too. And always feathering. So I don't have to take this color back all the way to the board edge, but I do want to try to feather that mark in there. And then you might be able to even feather with your fingernail, even if I am going across a little bit onto my light area, and create almost a false grain line right there. You can take your dry rag, kind of dry everything off. But I think that's going to stick out. So if I continued, you know, with my dryer, my damp rag, trying to take this off, that's still going to show. So I think this mark would be something that I would actually sand back down and chase the grain with my sandpaper, add some more color, and then tamp off, but we'll do that in another section. We just wanted to show here only using dry rags, damp rags, what can I do to try to, you know, minimize a heavy mark, blend that back in with the rest of the floor so that when I go back and put sealer and finish on, it looks like a natural part of just that board and blends in with the rest of the floor instead of those heavy marks going across. So I think on this side, that is what I do, and I'd be done here. Again, checking with my damp rag. It's really difficult to see that line now. I know where it is, so I can see it, but even on that side, and I think that's gonna blend out enough when we go ahead and put our sealer and finish on to call that repair complete.
Okay, guys, one question is, if I'm only using a small amount for a small repair, do I still need to add the second component?
I would, yeah, I would. And really, the second component is the color lock feature. It's going to provide that little repair, or maybe it's a sample that you did on a floor for a client, and you know it's 2 foot by 3 foot or something. You should use the hardener, and it's pretty easy to mix pretty quickly. I typically work in milliliters, and that metric system is a lot easier to use when you're trying to mix up small amounts than ounces.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question was, should I do it while the product is fresh, or should I wait until it's dry when I'm doing a repair?
It'll depend on the type of repair, and then also just the timing and cadence of the job as you're going. So for example, if it's just maybe you by yourself or you and a helper, you want to stay working together, you may leave that for tomorrow or later, say maybe an hour later when you do after you've done the whole project, so you both stay together, continue to work side by side. But if you've got maybe you got 2 helpers and you, then they can continue to go and you could go and tackle that. If it's something like, let's say your helper cut in down the wall with a cut-in pad across the grain, left a hard line, didn't feather it out, and it's been sitting there for 15, 20, 30 minutes, you may want to tend to that. If you see a hard line when you come back over with the roller, if you see that hard line, you may want to just scrub on that then and now, as opposed to, you know, thinking maybe that's going to be something you can deal with later. But it really does depend. The cool thing about Chroma is that you have a couple other types of repair techniques in your toolbox versus with an oil-based stain, you especially if you've water popped, you're pretty limited in how you're going to do repairs. And there are a lot more things you can do with Chroma in terms of touch up or manipulation of the surface versus an oil-based stain.
Awesome. Well, I think that segues us into the next video. We're caught up on our questions for now.
All right, so another repair method we can use, especially for hard lines, is we don't necessarily have to chase the grain and stuff. We can do some wet sanding. So if we've got a dark or a light area we're trying to blend in, we can take some more Chroma, paint it back on our area to help reactivate some of that extra color. And then instead of, you know, having scraped the grain and stuff, we're going to take 120 diamond or 120 black that we used to originally do the floor, and we can hand sand that back in, help take off the dark area. Kind of look down through it, make sure we've gotten rid of that hard edge. And you might have to flip because the stain is going to, whether it's the dry or the wet, it's going to load up your paper a little bit. Still want to kind of blot off the product, and then we can kind of start our wiping in and our trick wiping to blend everything out. Again, usually starting from the outside and working into the middle of our repair. and understanding that newly applied chroma is going to look a little different than chroma that's been down even for the couple hours. So don't try to get it the same color right away. Maybe take a walk around the block, then come back and determine if you need to wipe off a little more in the middle, because it's fresh is going to be darker than stuff that's already dry. So what I don't want to do is wipe too much of it off here and then come back and see that I've got actually a light spot in the middle now. So that's taken out at least my hard lines. I think I've got it blended pretty well. Gonna go take a little walk, come back. If it still needs a little more, I'll rub it down more with my damp board, my dry cloth first, and get the color right, and we'll go from there. But that's also how you can do a repair for hard lines with some wet sanding.
Okay, guys, repair question. Should I tape off entire boards? Would that be better than doing a spot repair?
You know, that's depends on your skill level of doing repairs, which is an art. When I was in the field, that was my job, and I got really good at repairs. But when I first started doing repairs, I often resorted to or trying to do a spot repair, which turned into a full board repair, which then turned into half a room resand because it got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I would say you kind of have to if you have grain, let's say a lot of cathedral grain, and Todd talked about chasing the grain. If you have a lot of cathedral grain, plain sawn boards, there's a lot of landscape in which to work with for spot sanding, spot scraping, whatever you do, or just manipulating with a wet or dry rag within the grain texture and outlines. If it's something like maybe ripped and quartered, or you don't have any of that, it's just all straight grain, you might need to do a full board. So you kind of have to just decide for yourself, what your skill level is, comfort level is, and then what kind of landscape do I have available here at this spot in the floor in which I can mask, camouflage, hide this repair.
Okay, so that's kind of a judgment call, I guess.
Yeah.
One more question that came in. How long should I wait to apply sealer after I've done a small wet sanded repair?
Well, I would say if you can wait at least an hour, 40 minutes to an hour, maybe increase some airflow. If you've got a hair dryer in the truck, put that on there and really kind of make sure that any residual moisture from the product, the water in it, is fully evaporated. And then when you do come back to put sealer over it, just be conscientious of the fact that that has not been maybe overnight dried or 2 or 3 hour dried. And so if you scrub on it, there's a chance you could pull some color on that. So you want to just be a little more gentle with that sealer application in that spot.
Okay, then we're caught up again on questions, guys.
Cool.
Then I think we will be wrapping it up here. I just wanted to touch on, I said it earlier on this, that before we launched this, we wanted to have a lot of different resources in place because it is a newer product, a newer process. And we knew there'd be a lot of questions, and we wanted to try to address those questions before we launched it. And so as more of a reminder, on our website at bona.com, under the product page or on the landing page on the home page, there is a list of all these documents from the blends chart I showed earlier in this presentation. We have a bunch of FAQs, application best practices, and then just our standard TDS sell sheets and things like that. So lot of info out there. And then in addition, on our YouTube channel, our Bona Professional YouTube channel, we have about 18 videos to address, which 4 you watched today, but there's a lot more on there, 14 more that you can go through. A lot of them are FAQs and short videos just addressing specific topics. But I highly recommend checking it out. I think those would answer a lot of questions and really give you support for trying this product for the first time.
Hey, Zach,
And then,
if I can interrupt you quick. We have one more question that just came in.
sure. Yep.
It's a good one, I think. How is Chroma on maple and birch?
That's a good question. So both of those species, as probably the questioner is asking, is they tend to be blotchy, and that just has to be inherent in the wood grain. The way the grain will go this direction for a split second and then completely turn 90 degrees and then back to this, so the grain inherently takes color in a strange, unique way. I have found that Chroma stains that crazy grain and the normal perfectly smooth grain in a very consistent manner, so that overall the floor looks more consistent and less blotchy, and not needing some preconditioner before the stain application. So it looks pretty good.
That's great. That's really helpful. Okay, thank you.
All right, and then lastly, just a reminder, Bona is big on training. So we do have on our website, we have a list of all of our 3-day sand and finish schools that you can register for. It's not clicking, Chris, if you can. But during those 3-day schools, they'll be talking a lot about Chroma. So it's a good opportunity to get familiar with any new product really Bona has, or any product that you guys have not yet had the chance to work with. And then in addition, we have a lot of territory managers out there and regional training centers, and those are out there for you guys really. It's a place, we know that using new products on a paid job is not your preference a lot of times. So reach out to your local territory manager and see what kind of distributor demos or other events they may have on a local level for Chroma. But again, use those regional training centers as a practice ground to go try these products, get comfortable and confident to go use this on your next job. And so with that, I just want to reiterate, with the Chroma, that it is a safer option by not having flame risk or any fire risk. It's quicker with the consistent dry times and process, not having to water pop and that extra step. And then just being healthier with the lower odor, less fumes, and a Green Guard Gold certified certification on that. And then one last thing is, on the back of all the bottles, there is a QR code on them, and that will take you directly to the website and where you can get to the videos and all those documentations. So if you're on a job and you need a little reference, you have that as well. So quick access. So that is all we have. I mean, if there are any other questions or anything, Kim, I don't know if anything else has come in.
It looks like we're caught up, guys.
Okay.
I'll just remind everybody who's tuned in right now that you will be getting an email tomorrow with a link to this entire presentation. So you have that to refer to and share, as well as all those resources that Zach and John just shared too. So thank you so much, guys. This has been super interesting.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.